Okay, now for something completely different. I'm Tony Williams. I'm the chairman of Major Precious Metals, and I'd like to introduce you to the Skaregard project in Greenland, rapidly emerging as a very large palladium and gold deposit of global significance. It's basically a layered igneous intrusion, and a lot of you who follow the palladium market and precious metal market might see it's a similar structure to the Bushveld complex in South Africa. The project's located on the central portion of the east coast of Greenland, and it's about 450 kilometers from Iceland and 1,000 kilometers from the capital of Nuuk. It is rugged and it is remote, but in mining terms, it's relatively accessible. The project's been known since the 1930s, but mineralization was only discovered in the late 1990s. The retreat of the coastal ice now gives us almost 100% exposure of the deposit, and we've identified a 45-meter thick mineralized zone at the top of the deposit, which contains layers of precious metal mineralization, largely gold and palladium, interspersed with other iron, titanium, and vanadium mineralization. It's had a long history of exploration, with about 35,000 meters of drilling done before our summer program this year. Since acquiring the project about a year ago, we remodeled the project and completed a 43-101 Canadian instrument report, which was filed last April and May, and that did confirm that this is truly a project of global significance. In the indicated category, we already have 4 million ounces of palladium and close to 1 million ounces of gold, but where it gets very interesting is when you look at the inferred category, where we have close to 10 million ounces of palladium in addition, and at close to 4 million ounces of gold. That equates to an overall resource at this stage of the project, expressed in palladium equivalent terms, of close to 20 million palladium ounces. Now this is a project truly of global significance, and really people ask me, well, why is it suddenly re-emerging? And I say, well, it is a function of global warming. The glacier has retreated big time in the last 15 years or so, giving us 100% exposure and the ability to drill, map, channel sample, etc. Following the filing of the report, which gave us encouragement to go back into the project, we raised about $18 million of funding this summer, went back in and drilled over 8,000 meters of new drilling and channel sampling, collecting over 11,000 new samples. And some of this drilling went to the north of the deposit, where lateral erosion has exposed the project, has exposed the outcrop. This mineralization can be traced now over around 70 square kilometers of the deposit with this 45-meter mineralized zone, both at surface and underground. It is truly emerging as a project of global significance. So these new samples were drilled and sampled during the summer. It is a seasonal exploration program in Greenland, as it is with all the coastal Greenland projects. We demobilized from site in October, and the projects have now eventually arrived in Ireland, having met all the various COVID protocols, and assay results will start to emerge over the next 4 to 6 weeks. We're very encouraged by what we've seen structurally, so let's hope the assays back us up. With these results coming out in Q1, we will then go forward and redo the mineral resource estimate and go back in this summer for more detailed feasibility work. It is rugged, it is remote, but in mining terms, it's relatively accessible. In the background there, you might see what looks like a small ship. It was actually quite a large ship, which was anchored in the fjord right next to the deposit. This picture was taken in mid-September. You can see it is starting to ice up again, but we use that boat as a base for our geologists and our surveyors and our helicopter support teams, and it worked out very well, very environmentally friendly. So it'll be a year-round mining operation when we get going, similar to a lot of remote coal location mines in northern Canada and in the Russian Far East. But we do have a summer exploration season, which does curtail it to a certain extent, but in mining terms, it's relatively accessible. We had 4 drilling rigs operating on the site this year. drilling from surface down to depths of 900 meters, and the mineralization is open in all directions. So we already have a resource of close to 20 million palladium equivalent ounces, and we expect that to expand over the next few weeks as the results emerge. We reached agreement with the permitting authorities to keep the rigs on site during the winter. They've been winterized so that mobilization for next summer's program will be much more rapid, and let's hope we don't have the COVID protocols that we had to contend with this year. All the drill holes, 32 drill holes, all hit their designated targets. The precious metal zones are between 1 and 3 meters wide within this 45-meter thick mineralized package, and we expect to be able to add to rock value with additional mineralization as well as the palladium and gold in the zones at the top and the bottom of the package. This just shows some of the samples getting prepped for shipping to Ireland. Greenland is emerging as a major geopolitical location for minerals over the next decade. And as Mr. Friedland very eloquently put it today, the world certainly needs more minerals. You can see from that all the deposits being explored and developed in Greenland are on the coast. This is, of course, the result of the retreat over the last 2 decades of the coastal ice, exposing very, very, very prospective geology, which, of course, is a new frontier here. It is completely unexplored. And while I think the Arabian Shield also has a heck of a lot of potential as an emerging mineral province over the next decade or so, Greenland certainly is in that category, and you can expect to hear a lot more about it as some of these projects progress, including our own Skaregard project. It is what I would call a Tier 1 jurisdiction. It has a very stable pro-mining government. It's ranked number 2 in Europe by the Fraser Institute annual survey of mining companies, a pro-mining population and government, and a fair and modern mining code, which sets out very clearly all the permitting steps needed to go from exploration through to exploitation. And I was asked earlier on, has that been done so far? Well, the Citron project to the north and the Dundas project are advancing into exploitation, and we hope to be following quite quickly behind with Skaregard over the next 12 to 18 months. Just a little bit about palladium, which is now probably accounts for about 65% of the revenue stream from this project. Despite the obvious penetration for electric vehicles over the next decade or so, palladium is still in major demand for auto catalysts, particularly in hybrids, which require a very, very high palladium loading. And also with the new hydrogen economy, while many of you may think that's just a narrative at this stage, this new generation of PEMs, proton exchange membranes, they require autocatalysts and they require a lot of palladium. So the demand for palladium is set fair for the next couple of decades, despite potential EV penetration. Palladium has been quite volatile in the last 12 to 18 months. The peak price was close to $3,000 earlier last year. In my opinion, that was largely event-driven by what happened in Norilsk. There were some well-publicized major flooding issues there and power outages in South Africa. The price has pulled back to its long-time average. It's still historically high at around $1,800 an ounce right now, so slightly above the gold price. And the general consensus is that when the chip shortage, which is holding back vehicle production right now, is overcome towards the end of maybe 2022, you'll see another major bounce in palladium. But the price right now at $1,800 is more than adequate for going forward with the Skaregard project. And of course, we have a very useful byproduct in gold. ESG is embedded in our strategy. We're working with SLR on what we call the TSM protocol towards sustainable mining, which is the Canadian government protocol. It's important in any project worldwide, and particularly in Greenland, and we've embedded this from day one. Very good relationships with the government in Greenland, and all permits in place for the exploration programs. And as we move forward, as we advance our feasibility studies and our impact studies, it's very clearly set out what's needed to go into exploitation. Current market capitalization around 50 million Canadian. We're listed on the NEO exchange in Canada. Expect to be fully listed on the OTC by the middle of 2022, and we're preparing for a London listing in Q4 of this year. These are the timelines for the value drivers. We've already done the first 4 things on that list there, with acquiring the project, remodeling, and the summer exploration program. Assay results are pending, and there'll be a plethora of news flow, probably starting early February through to March, which will lead us to the update of the resource estimate, a preliminary economic analysis, and then moving on to the feasibility work, and another probably being quite conservative, 10,000 meters of drilling and sampling over the next 12 to 18 months, at which point we'll have detailed feasibility. And if this resource of 20 million plus palladium equivalent ounces holds up, I think we'll get the attention of many in the industry. Just for a comparable, Eurasia Mining, which many people here who follow the sector will know, listed in London, developing a 15, 16 million ounce palladium equivalent deposit in northern Russia, market capitalization 750 million pounds. Chalice Resources developing the very exciting discovery in Western Australia, again 15 to 18 million palladium equivalent ounces, market capitalization 3.5 billion. Now, we have more logistical challenges in Skagerrak, but also the size of our deposit puts us well up there in world class, and we see a re-rating on the horizon over the next several months. So really, this is just to sum up the value proposition. Like all junior companies presenting here, we think we're undervalued, trading at a fraction of its peer group, given the already major global significant size of the resource. We're in a tier 1 jurisdiction. Greenland is a safe, mining-friendly jurisdiction. We already have a large global resource in indicated over 5 million ounces palladium equivalent and close to 15 additional palladium equivalent ounces in inferred, in geology that is very well understood. This deposit's been known about since the 1930s as a layered intrusion. Mineralization was only discovered, as I said, in the early 1990s, but the geology, the structure is well understood. So we're highly confident of putting a big chunk of these inferred reserves into indicated into measured as we go forward with the studies over this coming summer and the ensuing months. It is a strategic deposit, and there's been a lot of talk here about geopolitics, and I can't emphasize strongly enough how we feel that Greenland will become a very important geopolitical destination over the next several years. This is not Russia, it's not South Africa, it doesn't have any of the issues that you may or may not perceive to have there. It is one of the largest PGM deposits already outside of South Africa and Russia. We expect a re-rating just as we naturally progress along the mine development cycle going forward with the revised MRE, the 2020 assay results coming out over the next 6 to 10 weeks, and then moving into very detailed feasibility studies over the next 12 to 18 months. Thank you very much. We have a booth outside if you want any more information. Thank you.